When Eleanor Whitmore opened her door that stormy afternoon in June, she didn't know her life was about to change forever. She didn't know that tragedy, rejection, and sacrifice would shape the next 20 years. And she certainly didn't know that two tiny baby girls, left with no one, would grow into women who would defy everything the world told them they couldn't be. But this story didn't start with Eleanor. It started with her best friend, Jessica Monroe. Jessica was everything small-town Mississippi admired. White, blonde, delicate, with a smile as bright as the summer sun. She came from an old-money family, the kind with church pews named after them and a last name that carried weight. She was beloved, untouchable, and she had a future everyone else had mapped out for her. But Jessica did the unthinkable. She fell in love with a black man. His name was Nathaniel, a traveling artist who came through Elmsfield for just a few weeks. Their connection was instant. Raw, real, but dangerous. They met in secret, far from the judgmental eyes of Jessica's deeply conservative town. She knew the risks. He warned her, but in the blindness of young love, they promised forever. Then he disappeared. No note, no goodbye, just gone. And 3 months later, Jessica discovered she was pregnant. When she told her parents, they reacted like she had announced a death. Her father forbade her from speaking his name. Her mother fell into silence. The community that once adored her turned cruel. Doors were closed. Invitations vanished. She was branded a disgrace. But there was one person who stayed. Eleanor Whitmore. Eleanor, Jessica's childhood best friend, stood by her when no one else would. A schoolteacher with a quiet heart and a deep sense of loyalty, Eleanor took Jessica into her small bungalow on the outskirts of town. No questions. No judgment. Just love. Jessica gave birth to twin girls on a stormy night. A night when the power went out and the roads flooded. It was just Eleanor, a frantic midwife, and the sound of thunder cracking outside. But something went wrong. Jessica began to bleed. Fast. Uncontrollably. And with her final breath, she whispered, "Take care of them." Jessica died before she ever held her daughters. And just like that, Eleanor, single, white, and childless, became the guardian of two black baby girls. The town didn't forgive her. Whispers followed her everywhere. She's gone mad. She's raising them out of guilt. She's trying to be their white savior. But Eleanor didn't care. She packed up her life, left Elmsfield behind, and moved to Birmingham. There, no one knew her. No one knew the girl's story. She named them Ava and Amara, and she raised them like they were her own. But it wasn't easy. From the moment they entered school, Ava and Amara were reminded that their skin was a weapon the world feared. They were teased, bullied, ignored by teachers. People stared when Eleanor took them out in public. Sometimes, people asked if they were adopted. Sometimes, they assumed Eleanor was their nanny. And once, someone even called the police when they saw her holding Amara's hand at a grocery store. But Eleanor never wavered. She worked 2 jobs, teaching during the day and tutoring at night. She taught the girls about their mother's courage, about love that defies boundaries, and about strength rooted in self-worth. She read them books by Maya Angelou and James Baldwin. She encouraged Amara to sing when she found comfort in music, and pushed Ava to write when her notebooks overflowed with poetry. By the time they turned 16, both girls had already begun to shine. Ava won statewide poetry competitions. Amara uploaded a video of herself singing Strange Fruit, and within weeks, it had over 1 million views. They became known not as Eleanor's adopted girls, but as rising stars with voices the world couldn't ignore. But just as the world began to embrace them, the past came crashing back. A distant cousin of Jessica's saw a magazine feature on Ava and Amara. Furious, she showed up at Eleanor's door, accusing her of stealing Jessica's legacy. "They're not yours," she hissed. "They're the product of sin. They shouldn't be famous. They should be forgotten." The woman threatened legal action, vowing to take the girls away. For the first time in years, Eleanor feared she might lose them. But Ava didn't run. She stood up. At a youth conference in New York, she told the truth. Every detail. How their mother died alone. How their father disappeared. How the town rejected them. How Eleanor, a woman with no obligation, chose love over comfort. And how 2 unwanted babies became symbols of survival. The video of her speech went viral. News outlets picked it up. Celebrities shared it. People from all over the world sent messages of support. Suddenly, Eleanor wasn't the crazy woman who raised someone else's children. She was a hero. And Ava and Amara? They were unstoppable. Ava published a best-selling memoir titled The Color of Her Love. Amara signed a record deal and performed at the Grammys before she turned 20. They bought Eleanor a new house in Atlanta, gave her credit in every interview. And every time someone asked them how they survived such darkness, they answered the same way. Because our mom died, but we still had love. But just when it seemed their story had found its happy ending, something unexpected happened. During Amara's sold-out concert in Los Angeles, a man appeared backstage. He was older now, his hair gray at the temples, his eyes filled with something unreadable. Security stopped him. He said only one thing. "I'm their father." Frozen, shock in their eyes. After 2 decades of silence, the man who abandoned their mother had returned, and he was ready to tell his side of the story. But was it too late? Was there more to Jessica's death than anyone knew? And what secret had their father been hiding all these years? "I'm their father." In a quiet green room behind the noise and neon of Hollywood, Eleanor, Ava, and Amara sat across from the man who disappeared before they were born. His name was Nathaniel Rivers. No one knew what to say at first. Amara stared at him, unsure if he was real. Ava clenched her jaw. Eleanor folded her hands in her lap, guarding her heart. For 2 decades, Eleanor Whitmore had been the constant in Ava and Amara's lives. She had wiped their tears, paid their school fees, defended them when the world whispered cruel things, and watched them rise to heights even she never imagined. But nothing prepared her for the man who showed up backstage at Amara's sold-out concert in Los Angeles. He wore time on his face, wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, silver threads in his beard. Security had him contained, but he wasn't aggressive, just calm. Still, almost remorseful. Finally, Eleanor broke the silence. "You left Jessica. She died alone, and we buried her with unanswered questions. What could you possibly say now?" Nathaniel nodded slowly, then reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out a weathered leather notebook, its edges curled from age. Inside were letters, handwritten, some unopened, others smudged by tears. "I didn't leave," he said softly. "I was taken from her, and I never knew about the twins." He took a shaky breath and told the truth. 20 years earlier, Nathaniel had been a graduate student working on a cultural preservation project in Elmsfield, Mississippi. He and Jessica fell in love quietly, dangerously. Their interracial relationship was a time bomb in a town built on tradition and silence. Jessica's father knew, and he acted. One night, Nathaniel was ambushed by masked men as he walked to his car. They beat him bloody and left him across the state line with nothing but a warning pinned to his chest. "Leave town. Never come back." He was hospitalized for days. By the time he recovered, Jessica had vanished from his world. Her letters were never answered. His were never delivered. He assumed she'd moved on, or changed her mind. What he didn't know was that she had died, giving birth to the daughters he never met. Ava and Amara listened in stunned silence. Amara's eyes were red, but dry. Ava paced the room, trying to make sense of it all. "You expect us to believe that?" she asked. "That you just disappeared because some racist told you to?" Nathaniel looked down. "No. I expect you to know that I made the mistake of believing I had no place in her life anymore. And for that, I will always be sorry." Eleanor said nothing. Her mind was racing, stuck between anger and compassion. She had kept those girls alive, educated, protected, loved. And now this man, this ghost, wanted a place in their world? But then Amara spoke. Quietly. "She thought about you. Every time I sang, she'd say, 'That voice, that's from your father.' She never hated you." Nathaniel's eyes filled with tears. "I never stopped loving her," he whispered. "And I never stopped." There was a long silence. Then Ava sighed. "You don't get to show up now and rewrite everything." "But, well, listen. That's all we can promise right now." He nodded. "That's more than I deserve." In the weeks that followed, Nathaniel slowly began building a relationship with his daughters. It wasn't easy. There were awkward silences, emotional outbursts, and painful memories. But there was also healing. One evening, while helping Nathaniel sort through old belongings, Ava discovered a key. It was tucked inside a book Jessica had once gifted him. The key led to a small safety deposit box in New Orleans. Inside was a will, not tampered with, not stolen, dated just weeks before she gave birth. In it, she wrote of her love for Nathaniel and her fear. She knew her family had intercepted his messages. She knew something had gone wrong. But more importantly, it revealed something no one expected. Jessica had inherited a trust fund, one that her parents had hidden from her after she got pregnant. But somehow, she'd managed to secretly preserve it. In that will, she left it entirely to Ava and Amara. Signed by Jessica Monroe. It had never been filed. Eleanor had no idea it existed. The fund was worth over $2.3 million. The bank had been holding it dormant for nearly 2 decades. The girls were stunned. Suddenly, their story wasn't just one of love and loss, but of stolen legacy, hidden wealth, and long-buried truth. Jessica Monroe, not the girl who died alone, but the mother who fought, even in the shadows. The money wasn't what changed their lives. It was the truth. With it, they produced a documentary, The Color of Her Love. It told the story of Jessica's courage, Eleanor's devotion, and Nathaniel's buried truth. It shattered records. Millions of people watched. Millions cried. Some saw their own families reflected in the pain, the silence, the survival. When asked on a talk show what made her believe again, Ava said, "Because love can be louder than hate. My mother chose love. Eleanor lived it. And even when broken, love can rise again." Eleanor sat beside her on that stage, holding her hand. She didn't speak much. She never did. But in that moment, she didn't need to. The world finally saw what Jessica saw. Not a woman raising someone else's children, but a mother. In every way that mattered. Today, Eleanor lives quietly in Atlanta in a house Amara and Ava bought her. Ava visits every Sunday. Amara calls every night after her performances. Nathaniel? He takes it one step at a time. The girls don't call him Dad. Not yet. Maybe never. But they call him Nathaniel. And that's a start. Jessica's picture hangs above the fireplace. Beside it, a small plaque. Born in a world that hated her choices. Died giving life to love. And below that, two signatures. Ava Monroe Rivers. Amara Monroe Rivers. Because blood may begin a story, but love is what finishes it.